Oh, I feel for my brother. Feel for my brother. The street life used to be on. Straight up hustling till the break of dawn. Taught me how to do wrong right. Everything is tight.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far. Wait, no, wait, I screwed that up. I messed that up. I totally screwed that up. This is awesome.
Franchise.
Terrible start already.
No, this is the space franchise with the actual nice fans that we're talking about today.
Wow. We're firing mortars at Star Wars fans already? We're not even like 10 seconds into the podcast.
Hey, in the first episode of Rebinge Deep Space Nine, I called it Star Wars.
He did.
I can't imagine that went over well.
But you came back. You came back from that hurdle, and now we're here talking about Star Trek.
It is
a much superior franchise, in my opinion.
It is the Teebs and KidPhoenix versus podcast, and we are diving back into the Roddenberry verse. It is Star Trek, and we're talking about Section 31, the movie that premiered this past weekend on Paramount Plus, starring Michelle Yeoh, coming back to play Emperor Philippa Georgiou, and she has joined Section 31. I'm excited to talk about this just because I'd like to make Teebs talk about Discovery if I can. And this is just another fine way to do it. We have guests, in case you haven't heard.
We do have guests.
We
cleaned up the studio, dusted it off.
Did we, though?
No, not really.
So you can see them on YouTube's, again, full episodes video available on YouTube. We have James and Kim from the fantastic RebingeIt podcast. James, they've both been on the show before. How are you both doing this fine Sunday?
I'm doing good.
We are peachy. Like I told you a few minutes ago, we were cleaning up cat poop this morning, so it's been a big day.
This is the highlight of the day.
This is a total highlight after that, yeah.
Nice.
Wow, I feel like Teebs and I need to step the game up a little bit just to, make sure.
I was also cleaning up cat poop, but that's just what I call watching Rise of Skywalker. All right, that's it. I'm done. I'm done with those.
Christ.
We're done here. Okay.
Shots fired.
Enough.
Damn.
That's enough. Okay.
Teebs is not just firing like little puny shots. Like he's firing Barrett 50 cal bullets at Star Wars fans. You realize that Star Wars is something we have to talk about from time to time?
I hate it. I regret it every time.
I'm just saying, we have to deal with some of these nerds, okay? I'm just pointing that out.
I better not bring up Skeleton Crew then.
I have not seen
a single frame of that show.
We have not talked about Skeleton Crew at all.
By the way, I do sell Star Wars branded merchandise on my website, if anyone's interested.
Jeez.
You don't hate the fans enough not to take their money. I appreciate that.
Well, that was not lost on me there.
But hey, we're not here to talk about me and my hypocrisy. We're here to talk about Section 31. Fine, well, maybe not. And we're so fine.
Already. We haven't even, Jesus, man, unbelievable. You are out of control already.
It's the wine.
It's the Romulan wine that Teebs is drinking, is what it is.
There's no way I got through that movie without this wine. And there's no way I'm getting through talking about this movie without it either.
Section 31, of course, based on Star Trek by Gene Roddenberry, directed by Olatunde Osunsanmi, starring Michelle Yeoh, Omari Hardwick, Sam Richardson, Robert Kaczynski, Casey Roll, among others. We have all seen this, correct?
Yes.
Twice.
Yep. I watched it twice. Yep.
I also watched it twice. I watched it this morning before heading over to a football party. Let's just start off and just go round robin. Like, what did we like about Section 31? I'll start with James and Kim, and I'll start on the positive end because I'm pretty sure Teebs has nothing positive to say about this movie.
That's okay.
Prove me
I
wrong.
might surprise you.
Prove me wrong.
But
James, let's start off with you.
Let's go.
Okay. what I liked about it, very slick, really good production values, special effects were top notch, the casting was very interesting, and I think, well, the problem is bit of a fanboy for Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
You know, having her in the show, that was one of the highlights.
Yeah, I kind of found it to be a bit of a mixed bag. So thinking about the things that I liked, there was a point where I sort of felt like we got away from the silly and it became a little bit more of a caper movie, right? When it hit that point where they realized there was a mole in the group and then they started to figure out who the mole was and they started to actually be on a mission, then I thought it got good from there. There was that whole part that I felt was really good. And then it right at the end, I wasn't too happy with exactly how it ended, but that second part of it was, I thought, really enjoyable.
James, you talked about some of the special effects, and if you don't mind, I'd like to just point out and just bring up something that you brought up on Blue Sky. Some of the action sequences felt like video gamey to you, which after watching it once or twice, I kind of got that same. I kind of got that same feel. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more? Some of the camera style choices, especially, for example, the phase fighting scene,
Right.
it just felt a little disjointed, and I get that gaming feel from you.
In some ways, it felt like playing almost one of the Mortal Kombat games with the fighting scene, the phasing scene, and certainly watching more of like if you're watching a couple of really good players play it.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like that. And it's not a criticism of it. I actually like that.
Not at all.
And then if there was one thing in it, this will probably date me, the chase where they're in the tunnel chase on those little like trolley things.
Little platforms, yeah.
Little platforms. That is the Ord Mantell section of Shadows of the Empire, where you're on these little trains and it's following a path. And I was watching that going, wow, that is like flashback to playing that game from however many years ago it was.
Oddly enough, I did have a flashback to a game during that sequence, but it was Battletoads when you're flying through the thing and you have to try not to die.
A level that no human being on Earth has ever gotten past.
Yeah. But I did think that sequence when they're flying around on those platforms did feel particularly video gamey. It kind of took me out of what little investment I had in the picture.
With Kim, in the sense that I wasn't vibing too much with, Act 1, like the setup, meeting everybody. But like once Act 2 started to get in gear and the mole was revealed, and then it really turned into what this movie's supposed to be, which is basically a Star Trek CIA type kind of a show. And that kind of worked for me. Obviously, you have to do setup for characters and everything because this is a brand new story. The only person that people are going to recognize is Philippa Georgiou, Michelle Yeoh's character. So you have to take a little bit of time. I think that they were a little bit heavy-handed in that, but again, once they got past the setup, I thought the story was real tight, and I also liked the fact that the movie, it had decent pacing. It was like an hour and a half. I'm back eating corn. Hour and a half, Star Trek, and I'm home in time for cornflakes,
Agreed. I think the pacing of it worked really well. And there has been a trend to, I don't know whether it's they've got more time on streaming, of making it a 3.5 hour spectacle. It's like, you don't need that time. You can make a really great story in a short period of time. And I think the pacing worked and the length of time of it. You didn't have really long, drawn-out scenes. Although Kim and I, Kim can probably add to this comment, we were laughing at the whole intro of how many other movies inspired this.
Yeah.
I mean,
we were like, now it's Mission Impossible. Now it's Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah.
It did draw from a lot of things.
Yeah, now it's The Fifth Element, the opera scene.
The Fifth Element, when the singing started, yeah.
Yeah, they're on Floxton Paradise. So it was interesting. I wonder if they were deliberate nods to other sci-fi, successful sci-fi properties that fans would appreciate.
And I think what separates Star Trek from most other franchises is that, like, they don't try to do too much. You know, like, this movie was, like, it was an hour and a half and we're in and out. Whereas, you know, Marvel, they will drag things out. Star Wars, they will drag things out. DC, they will drag things out. Like, I feel like this one didn't quite do that, and I think that's why it worked a little bit better, especially with subject matter that people aren't really familiar with.
I would argue that we maybe dragged out the intros a little bit more than we needed to. I mean, you said that it was something that we had to do, but I'm not sure that it was. We already knew Giorgio. I mean, if you watched Discovery at all, you would know that character. And I don't think we needed to do quite as much of an intro on her, but all the intros that they did with all the other characters was very old school. Like, oh, we have to stop now and talk about each character and get their name and who they are and understand their background. And I would argue you don't need to do that. Just jump into the story and you can learn those things kind of as you go. I did think that that was a little bit clunky there at the beginning.
Very much a nod to the Caper movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or like Ocean's 11, where we have to bring one person in at a time and learn what their specialty is and what their thing is.
All right, Teebs, you have the floor. Surprise us all with something that you like about this film.
Yeah, only something good or we're going to mute you. I'm sure there's a mute button on here.
Because I know that his what we didn't like section is going to be like an hour and a half, and none of us have time for that.
Look. I really like Michelle Yeoh and what she's doing with the character.
Period.
And
was that the end?
I just like, hey, Michelle Yeoh, you want to twirl your mustache for an hour and a half? Go nuts. It's fantastic. I don't want to contradict Kim, but I kind of liked the kind of spy-esque or the capery introduction part, the introduction was probably my favorite part. I think.
Interesting.
I think after like the main plot gets going, that's for me when it's like, okay, I'm like not invested anymore.
The exact opposite experience. At the beginning, I was like, oh my God, with these people. Okay, come on, let's do something. I had the total flip-flop experience.
I can tell you the exact moment. I was like, okay, they just killed the Deltan, I'm out. That's the only, like, I just wanted to know more about Deltans and like what that culture's like. But like, no, she's dead now, so I guess I don't get to learn that. So I'm out.
Well, I think
what
Fuzz
do you
may
need to know
have
about
actually
Deltans?
More. You bring her in. Okay, I'll talk about it later. But James, you.
Well, I think the actor who played Fuzz, that might actually be a Crime Against Humanity, the Irish accent he was putting on. It was actually painful. That was Dick Van Dyke.
I forgot
Mary
about
Poppins
that character entirely until you just mentioned them.
Yeah, and then they brought him back at the end, which I was okay without him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's funny is the accent actually kind of fades as the movie goes through.
It does.
You start off with this dear.
Here's another thing that I really kind of appreciated. I think the story, while fairly simplistic, it was basically Giorgio's love interest got this like huge weapon from the Terran Empire and just brought it in. Oh, like escaping the sins of your past or reconciling with them, whatnot, whatever. It is a tried and true method. You know, I guess simple is good.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but was this originally supposed to be a series that they chopped down into just a movie, like an hour and a half long movie?
Well, they talked about making a series, but I don't know that they had a story when they were talking about it. I don't know that we know that they took it and turned it into a movie.
Got it.
If this was the story for a season, it's a little bit too close to the final season of Discovery.
Yeah. All right, let's just dig in. What did we not like about this? And I think I'll just let Teebs go first, just to get it over with.
No, listen, I didn't like hate it. I just thought it does that thing that all genre movies do now, where the dialogue, everybody's just a little bit too quippy. It's just a little bit too much of that Whedon-esque kind of, oh, everybody's so cool and self-aware and like nobody takes anything seriously. And it kind of belies the stakes that you're trying to lay down. This is the problem that I have with a lot of stuff that uses that particular style. It belies the stakes that you're trying to set. when nobody seems to be like invested in the threat or nobody selling the threat other thing.
Until the end. Right?
Until the very
and then
end.
they tried to get really serious at the end. I mean, that was my problem with Guardians of the Galaxy was the same thing. It was just like, oh my God.
I didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy either for the same reason. It's like, okay, if it's a romp, be a romp. If you're not going to be a romp, like, I don't. It's a delicate balance, and I don't know. For me, it just didn't hit that. I mean, I like the characters individually. I thought they were interesting, but like, I don't know. It just feels like they were trying to make Mission Impossible, like you said. Like, this is supposed to be Star Trek Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just didn't really come together for me.
One thing about the cast, specifically in the beginning, I don't know if anybody else kind of felt this way, but it almost felt like forced chemistry, or they were trying too hard to create that chemistry, and it just came off as like really silly and like almost clicky to an effect, where it's just like, oh, we have Giorgio on this side, but then even inside the group, you have Fuzz and Zeph on one side, and then you have Alok and Garrett on the other side, and it's just like when they try to bring them all together, even though that they're all basically strangers, it just still didn't feel like, you know, they didn't really want to be in the same room together. And like you kind of felt that up until like the mole situation, and that's when they all just said, all right, screw this, forget our differences, we need to figure this shit out.
Yeah.
That just felt really off to me.
I think and this is a minor complaint, possibly. I didn't think they actually really expanded the characters enough. We didn't see enough of why this Starfleet officer, why she was assigned to them. Other people, and other people, they managed to seem to get their character right out in the front, and you could see it. Sam Richardson, if you need kind of the geeky guy, it's like, boom. Yeah. He's now tagged of, oh, we need kind of a geeky tech guy. Put Sam Richardson in. He can just roll with it. And then didn't write the names down of everyone. Zeph.
I got you.
Zeph was kind of the mech suit guy, and that was the limit of it. The Deltan was wasted. It was like the Deltan's the sexy spy, and we kill her at I think my timing is 24 minutes and 57 seconds before she's done.
Wow, I didn't know there was such passion for finding out about Deltans. Like Star Trek, let's get a Deltan show on the horizon. Let's go.
Well, it's the motion picture. I mean, we saw a Deltan appear in the motion picture, and she made it to the last 5 minutes. Well, I suppose if you
she didn't. She made it to the middle of the movie, and then she was murdered. And
yeah. I suppose it was the replicant thing of her.
Right.
Listen, Deltans just don't make it through Star Trek films. What are you gonna do, man? That's why they need a series.
This is kind of why I'm saying that they should have tried to introduce the characters a little bit less conventionally, and I think we would have had more luck. Whereas the thing that they tried to do was quite clunky, and ultimately we didn't learn that much about anyone except for Alok. That was his name, right?
Alok.
We learned about him when he got the opportunity to tell his story. We at least learned a little bit about him, and by the end, you kind of believed that he and Giorgio did make a connection. But otherwise, yeah, everybody was a little bit shallow.
That's why I asked if this was originally supposed to be a series, because maybe, I don't know if the intention was to flesh them out later, or...
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have like an episode, you could have a background episode on each character.
Yeah.
Could this have worked as a series? Is there, pardon the pun, but is there a universe where this kind of show is interesting to, like, Star Trek fans?
Well, it depends on which part of it you're talking about, right? I mean, from my point of view, if they were actually going to do Mission Impossible as Section 31, sure, that could work with the right writers and the right stories. I don't know that these exact characters could work in the long run, but I could see that working. In fact, I thought that's sort of what we were going to get, right? A little bit like that, but that wasn't exactly what we got. It was a bit more almost Marvel-y in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of that's the right adjective I would use. This just felt a little too Marvel-y.
Well, we drew on so many things. We drew on Marvel, we drew on Star Wars, we drew on The Fifth Element, we drew on Mission Impossible, but you know what we didn't draw on? Star Trek.
Star Trek?
Where was the Star Trek in this story? I mean, I heard a couple of special effects, or little sound effects, I should say, maybe 2 or 3 times, and they played a tiny hint of the Star Trek music a couple of times, but otherwise, Was this
Yeah.
Star Trek?
The only real callbacks that I remember, obviously the callback to Rachel Garrett in the Enterprise C, and then the eugenics wars, but that's pretty much the only mentions of the Star Trek universe as a whole, like
Right.
canonically.
I feel, yeah, it's just kind of like a Marvel, not even Marvel, it's kind of like a modern action movie just in a Star Trek wrapper. Like, it's not really like invested in anything particularly to do with the Trek universe. It's just pulling in this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing and like spreading them around. And, you know, if there's enough of it, you can call it Star Trek, but
I'll
I don't know if that
jump
works
genre for a second, based on what Teebs was saying there. Jumping genre for a second. One of the things I liked about Solo, I think maybe I'm the only person, I liked the fact it was a Star Wars caper movie at the end of the day. That's what it was. You could have almost put anybody in there and it would have worked. In some ways, I like this because it's a caper. Maybe I have a thing about caper movies. It's a caper movie set in the Star Trek universe. I would agree its link to the greater Trek universe is a little tenuous, but I think, you know, as a story plot, it works. And just leaping all the way back to Kim's idea, 1000%. Mission Impossible, Star Trek Mission Impossible. I'm signing up for the subscription for that now. I am down with that.
Yeah, Paramount Plus, if you do a righteous, like, Mission Impossible, Star Trek, like, Section 31, like, I would literally buy a year subscription to Paramount Plus right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on the record saying that right now. I just want to make that known. Paramount Plus, you're listening.
Hey, you know, could you guys call, you know, I mean, you're on first name terms with, what's her name, Kathleen Kennedy. I mean, she's going to have some sway with...
Yeah, she's
going to have some sway with the other studios.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, maybe. I was just going to say, the DS9 episode where they save Vic from the mobsters is the only Star Trek caper anything that I need. It's fine. It's great. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Kim is not convinced.
No.
Kim is not
I'm not on the
convinced at
train.
all.
Not on the train with this one. What the hell are you talking about?
So now that we have this movie, and granted, it was not reviewed well. It was, I don't know if anybody really gives a shit about like Rotten Tomatoes or anything, but it's already below 35%.
Wow.
It was.
Did it get bombed or?
I don't know. I
bet there was a lot of hate watching because
Probably.
You know, people just want to hate Discovery, and this is a reflection of it.
Teebs.
Okay, listen. I told you. I'm giving Discovery a full rewatch. I'm going to meet Discovery on its own terms. Fresh look, open mind.
Just skip season 4 and everything is fine.
We had one person from Engadget call it unwatchably bad. I think that's a little bit too much.
That's a little harsh. I mean,
that's a little harsh.
Oh, yeah, that's totally harsh. Yeah, but also I think you have to remember that people have such an idea of what they want when it comes to Star Trek because it's been around for so long. That really, most people's opinions, it's like, it doesn't matter to me. My opinion matters to me if I like it or not. But it's just like, okay, if it's not the Star Trek you want, fine. But it might be the Star Trek I want.
Well, I think it's fair to say we know Star Trek fans who were outraged, is that the right term, about Lower Decks?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's ruining Star Trek. It's like, okay, you hate it? Don't watch it.
It's cartoon Star Trek. What could you possibly be upset about? We have that, and then, you know, it is kind of set up for future stories down the line, because, spoiler alert, you had, like, Jamie Lee Curtis show up at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wait, are we getting more of this story? Like,
wait, Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis was Jamie Lee Curtis? That was just a fever dream I had while I was watching.
It's your voice at the beginning too. She's in the communication at the beginning, and then you see
her
face
Escape
at the
from
end.
New York.
So while I don't think it was like unwatchably bad, I could totally see like the big wigs at Paramount just being like, all right, we tried this thing and it didn't work. But me personally, I'm like, yo, you at least tried something. You stuck your neck out there. I can appreciate that. As opposed to some of these other like IPs that are just doing the safe shit all the time and just regurgitating the same thing.
Okay,
Well,
wait a
Paramount's
second though.
also
Wait a
having some
second though.
financial problems.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to sell themselves to someone else. The worry would be that they're just going to go for safe things. What's the next sequel we can make to something that's safe money?
Okay, the idea is something new. The execution is about as safe as you can get as far as movies go in 2025.
Okay.
Like, there's nothing like really provocative in the making of this thing.
No.
So, like, you can say they went out on a limb all you want, but when it was time to put your money where the mouth is, they just did exactly what everyone else is doing. So,
But they didn't do Trek. I mean, that's
right.
the thing that was different, is that they were trying to extend the Trek universe, right, by making it a little bit different that way. But the movie itself, just like if you look at it in terms of all the other movies out there, it was very familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, sorry to bring it back to the MCU, but I think it's the example our listeners will definitely understand the most. But, like,
Probably.
initially when the MCU started, it was thought of as, oh, you could take these characters and you had a chance to tell all these genre stories within the Marvel universe. So, like, there are certain Captain America movies that work really well. Okay, there's one Captain America movie that works pretty well as an espionage movie. Well, but it works pretty well as an espionage movie, I think. But that's because they
really leaned into it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they leaned into that genre, and like they leaned into like some of the iconography and like the visual storytelling of that particular genre.
Yeah.
I don't think that they tried anything like that here. They just tried to make, I guess, a superhero movie. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess just like an ensemble action movie for 2025.
I don't know if calling it just like I don't know if superhero movie is the right term I would use.
Well, they had this popular character in Georgia.
Right.
And so they tried to extend her character a bit, I think, and make her the star, but they totally fumbled the ball on that. Because if you go and you watch the way Emperor Giorgio, not Captain Giorgio, right, but the way that Emperor Giorgio ended on Discovery, it was great. It was a great finale for her. She went out. She actually went back to the Mirrorverse, right? Had to sort of see that she had changed the way that she thinks about things, the way that she sees things. She had evolved. And yet she came here and they tried to, it was like they wiped the whole thing out and started over with something else. And I think that was the mistake that they made. If they were trying to build around that popular character, then they should have built around that popular character instead of trying to do something else with her.
Right. I feel like after, because I watched the 2-part Terra Firma from season 3 of Discovery, and Giorgio went in a certain way and then came out like really like being a different kind of person. But then when you get to Section 31, it almost feels like she reversed back to that like benevolence almost.
But if she had stayed as that character, that we spent 3 years evolving her to that, right? If we had kept that, we could have really done something, I think, well with what we were, at least what I was expecting, if we went into that sort of mission-based thing with her where, her ethics are compromised, and that's fine. But we're not going back and talking about her killing her family. Because they started that way, and you already go, who the hell's this person? I don't want to care about her.
Right.
I just felt like they fumbled with that, and because they could have done an almost superhero type thing, but they didn't. They did something else.
Not a lot of leeway with your character when they start off by murdering their entire family.
I thought that was a real mistake, honestly, because they made me really like that character, and then they did that. And you're like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
Because originally she said that she did that. We heard that in Discovery, but she was so much hyperbole, right? You could convince yourself she's making that crap up. And now they just, oh no, she didn't make that up. She's actually this horrible.
So, James, let me pose this question to you since we're going down this road, because it's actually an interesting question, because I actually liked that beginning where like we get to know like how Giorgio came to be in the beginning like that. Is that maybe a case of like you don't want to meet your celebrities or anything like that? That's kind of what it felt like a little bit. I was just like, oh shit, she wasn't kidding.
I think if you'd watched Discovery, you'd already know what she was like. So I think for the movie, for this as a standalone, I mean, I assume one of Paramount's hopes is somebody who didn't watch Star Trek, who didn't see Discovery, doesn't really know the franchise that well, watches this and gets interested in the franchise. That's my theory.
Interesting.
Put a pin in that. I want to speak to that point.
Now, if you watch Discovery, you know Giorgio is, to me, Giorgio is the woman wearing the stealth suit who just shoots, was it 3 Klingon assassins trying to kill the Klingon Chancellor, and she doesn't even bat an eyelid at it. I mean, Giorgio is brutal. And I think that was a good way of introducing Giorgio's ambition is it overrides everything. Even her family is nothing compared to her ambition. And I think it was necessary. It felt a bit Hunger Games, but
it's drawing for more things.
Worked. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I totally disagree, but we had that conversation live as it was happening. I think it was just wrong based on the positioning that they did of that character already. But yeah, I get it.
So we have this, and it was brought up that like Paramount, like they're trying to sell themselves to some company. So with this and Brave New World season 3 coming later on this year at some point.
Strange
New World. Sorry.
Yeah.
Season 3. I always screw that up. I'm sorry. That's coming out at some point this year. That's pretty much all we've heard about. Like, what's the state of Star Trek in 2025?
Isn't
depleted.
That's a good word.
I think Strange New Worlds is probably the flag. Well, it's the only.
It's all they got.
Lower Decks is done, right?
Lower Decks is done.
Prodigy has not been renewed.
Yeah, Prodigy so needs to be renewed.
Prodigy should come back.
Strange New Worlds is the only show they got going right now, and it's a good show.
Has Starfleet Academy, is that on hold? Is that
allegedly that's something they're working on?
It's filming, because I've heard Tig Notaro on various podcasts talk about filming it. So it's actually filming. So something will come out.
I don't know. They've been trying to make a Starfleet Academy something for like 40 years.
Yeah, but they're filming something, and who knows, I guess, what it will be.
Hey,
there was a point a couple years ago where there were so many Star Trek things active.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they weren't all airing at the exact same time, but we had Strange New Worlds, we had Prodigy, we still had Discovery, and we had Picard. And I remember James and I were having this conversation. We were like, we have reached peak Star Trek to the point that it's going to go the other direction. It can't keep going like this because we've flooded the market with Star Trek. So it's like we kind of knew there had to be a decline, but now we're down to just one show, and maybe back to the sort of normal world of Star Trek. But can we survive after having done the flooding of the market?
So forget plateau. Like, we're just straight up in the valley now.
Well, I think it's indicative of what's happening with TV writ large. There was just an explosion of stuff, and everybody has to pare down. There's not as much money being thrown at stuff anymore.
Well, we don't want to pay for writers, for example.
Don't want to pay for writers or artists.
We don't really want to pay for actors either. We just want to use AI.
Couldn't just one episode of, what is it, the Prime show, Board of the Rings, couldn't that pay for an entire season of Star Trek?
Board of the...
That's fantastic.
Hey, viewing numbers
totally
on that are going up.
Show, possibly.
Yeah.
Are they
I
really?
read they've almost got 8 people watching it regularly now.
Honestly, James, I used to take Ambien. Not anymore.
Okay.
That show...
Jesus Christ.
15 minutes, I'm down. Out like a light.
I'll just say it. Unwatchable.
But you said you were thinking that Paramount's hopes for this were that people would watch it and like be able to latch onto it if they had not had any knowledge of anything else. I don't know. There's so many callbacks to. This is kind of my issue with a lot of Kurtzman, is that they'll say these things like we're going off in a new direction, we're trying something new, and then bring callbacks from the motion picture and Star Trek VI and obscure Enterprise episodes.
Yeah, but everybody's doing that. Everybody's doing callbacks for nostalgia purposes. Everybody's doing that.
Right, but but these are like, okay, Spock in Discovery is a callback for nostalgia purposes. Throwing a Delton and a Cameloid on this show is just like, let's rifle around in the old Star Trek toy box and see if we can dig up.
I just have to correct Atiba on one thing. It's not Spock, it's Hot Spock.
Excuse me, pardon me, my mistake.
Hot Spock agrees with me.
Teebs hates any Spock that is not Leonard Nimoy, for the record.
I'll answer Teebs on this. I think because if you're watching this cold, what you're seeing is wacky races, different creatures, different people. And he's just bringing in sort of the richness of Star Trek, of this history, and of the mention of the augments and the eugenics wars. And if you're watching it cold, these are maybe things you can go and watch the episodes about those.
Yeah.
But it just adds to sort of the background of the story. Yeah, it appeals to fans who know these things, but I don't think it would. I don't think it detracts from the story, and it might provide more interest to people who don't have the background. There's a lot of history in here.
I see what you're saying, James, and yeah, it may be difficult for me to, rise above my biases here, having watched so much Star Trek.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this: I've had an experience watching Voyager, and I'm not going to give anything away. But later seasons of Voyager, when they they introduce villains in Voyager that I think are very interesting upon subsequent watches. And I think part of what Star Trek's problem is it doesn't, as soon as something doesn't work, or it doesn't seem like it's super duper popular, they kind of go right back to the mill, back to what works.
Yeah.
I feel like Voyager might have had a chance to build out some villains that I think are more interesting, but because it wasn't really working out for them, they had to go back to the Borg, and the Borg had become the main heavy of the series.
People don't want new things. We should have learned that. They want the same.
Kim, I want new things.
The guy who mentioned the honeymooners when he was on our podcast. I'm not convinced.
Oh my God.
Yes, he did.
Teebs is talking about the honeymooners. He's fucking ordering filet mignon at fucking movies. He's going to golf tournaments. Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Teebs, you are really becoming quite the boomer now. It's fucking ridiculous. You realize this?
There's a line on AbFab where they say, I don't want more choices, I just want nicer things. And it applies to a lot of things, like even this. I don't necessarily want more choices, I just want the things I have to be better. Let's just make better things.
That's true too. That's also very true.
I like newer, better things too. And last time I got something new and better, which was The Last Jedi. There was such fucking
we're back to this
vitriol about that.
Not this. Okay, that's kind of why. Not to make this about me, but this is kind of why I want to go back and rewatch Discovery. Because now knowing what it is and having proper expectations, I'm wondering upon a rewatch if I'll be able to at least reach some kind of detente with that show, and maybe find some things that maybe the things that I was reacting to so severely before, I won't react that severely to, and I'll be able to accept the show on its own terms.
Maybe. There's some very good stuff in it.
I came into it later.
There's some really good stuff in Discovery that you would really get down on.
There was a thing in Discovery, especially in the last season, that they did all the time where on Discovery itself, when something was going wrong, like if they were being attacked, there would be these big flames that would just shoot up.
Yeah.
Did you notice that in this movie?
Yeah.
The same director. I was like, God, that guy loves shooting flames.
The pathway or whatever, and just the flaming cauldrons on either side. I'm just like, what is happening right here?
That guy loves fire.
That's the director. That's his shtick. Okay,
that's fine.
As we were talking about,
okay, go on. Sorry.
As we were talking about Star Trek things, it nods to the past. What about the Charonian at the beginning? Michelle Yeoh's assistant.
Her assistant /
I forgot that race had a name. Yeah. I thought they were just the black and white guys.
So was this Commissioner Beale before he went on the chase? That's the question.
I don't think so. Maybe the timing is right though. It could be.
The timing is right. Yeah.
So I think in general, I think we all liked Section 31. I don't think so. For me personally, I don't think I would recommend it to somebody that has never seen Discovery before. Back to James's point, I don't know if I would use Section 31 as a way to get somebody into Discovery, I would probably just say, hey, watch like the first 3 or 4 episodes. If you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. But if somebody was like myself, who's like heavy into Discovery, I'd be like, yeah, it's 90 minutes of your life. You're in, you're out, you're sleeping. It's fine. You're good.
It would be an oddly roundabout way to get somebody into Trek or Discovery.
I don't know
You
if
can't
this is
start
more.
a Star Trek the first time to get somebody to Star Trek. You cannot start with a girl killing her family.
Right.
You
Yeah.
then expect that
Right.
person to be your hero. You can't start there. That is not how Star Trek should be started.
No.
That's okay. That's a really good point.
Clearly, the way, and I don't know about you folks, excuse me, but I think definitely the way to start somebody watching Star Trek is with space jellyfish.
Oh my god.
It's the only way.
Yeah.
So Teebs, is there
not one of the best pilot episodes?
I love Encounter of Farpoint. Are you kidding me? That is pure Trek.
Most of the pilots aren't great, but
pure something, that's for sure.
Well, Deep Space Nine, that is a great pilot.
Prodigy pilot is great.
Prodigy pilot was pretty solid.
I will say.
But here's the thing, the Prodigy pilot, and we talked about this, it feels like a Star Wars cartoon until, I don't know, came what, like 2/3, maybe 3/4.
They did that on purpose to get the audience. And then that thing turns into Trek so fast.
So, Teebs, would you recommend this to any brand of Star Trek fan?
I would have, but Kim's point about starting with family, with familial murder, it's really rough. It's a rough start. So probably not.
Trust me, it's about a bright, happy future.
This is more like 300 or 400 level Star Trek right here.
This is senior level. I'm about to graduate.
Yeah. This might even be postgraduate work.
Yeah, postgraduate elective.
Man.
Wow.
I will say that Through a Mirror Darkly, the Enterprise episodes, remains the finest mirror universe anything in Star Trek.
The Discovery episodes.
Discovery episodes, man.
They made the Mirrorverse what it is.
Yeah, here's my opinion on the Discovery mirror episodes. They make the Deep Space Nine mirror episodes absolutely shine. I think if you literally you watch Discovery and the building of the mirror universe, and you go back and watch earlier stuff, it's like, wow, this makes it even better. This makes it really feels like it fleshes it out.
Go back and watch the DS9 mirror episodes now. Goddamn.
We'll have to talk about it when you guys get into your Enterprise rewatch in about 3 years. So.
We get so many messages of people who want us to do that, and we just don't want to.
You're just like, no, we do not want to subject ourselves to Scott Beck.
Well,
it's not the worst. It's not the worst.
The fact that there's 2 characters that are interchangeable on that show. You could literally swap their dialogue and you wouldn't notice any difference.
Yeah, those two white guys look exactly the same.
Sounds like a segment.
Listen, all I'm saying is,
it didn't
so
work for
many
me.
of them email us. It's wild.
I'm just saying, there's a reason why there were no characters from Enterprise taken in our fictional Star Trek draft. I'm just putting that out there.
None?
Not a one.
Wow.
Not a one.
Not even the dog.
All right, the dog. That's right.
Porthos.
Man.
Jesus.
Porthos. We're sorry, man. All right.
So anything worse with space horses.
Don't get me started.
Don't get you started with space horses. No,
we'll be here all night.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. What we are doing, however, we're doing more of these fun podcasts with fun people. James, Kim, you're of the RebingeIt podcast. Why don't you tell everybody where they can download, follow you on socials? This is your time to plug your business, so to speak.
Sure. So we are RebingeIt on YouTube, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. You can reach us there. We can also be reached on RebingeIt@gmail.com. We get mostly people email us, probably due to the age of our listeners, perhaps. And we are also available on Facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcast, because we're part of the Talk Through Media network.
And you can also watch the videos on, you can watch the listen to the podcast rather on YouTube.
send all of your requests to do an Enterprise rewatch to those addresses.
Yes, please send it to RebingeIt@gmail. I will put it in my folder of people who want us to watch Enterprise.
Which is up to like what, a couple hundred now, a couple
It's
thousand.
a lot. It's not in the thousands. You know what? If it gets in the thousands, we might think about it.
We might have to do it. Yeah. Look for Teebs and I to maybe make some appearances when they do a Discovery rewatch. I'm 1,000% in if and when that happens. Teebs maybe at various points.
I believe I'm coming on for I'm coming on for one of Voyager's horny episodes, or maybe one of the.
Well, you did join us for Threshold, which is an infamous
I was
episode.
Say, which one?
We laughed so hard in that episode.
I've told the story about this one. I had to cut so many sections out of that. Cut that down so much.
So much laughing.
There was whole sections where none of us could speak for laughing. It was so funny.
Well, yeah, the episode that I suggested coming on for is even I just have to hear Kim's take firsthand on this episode. No. It is truly ghastly, and
wow, there's a
so I'll be on for that. Hopefully, enjoy that. I'm also doing art. I will be streaming The Thing, the remaster, the 2024 remaster of the 2006 game. 2006. I'll be streaming that sometime this week. If not sometime this week, definitely next Saturday at 10 a.m.
Yeah, streaming Saturdays, baby.
Streaming Saturdays. And, I'm a Teba K everywhere. I'm on Blue Sky now. I'll be on whatever Blue Sky TikTok is. I'll be on that.
You can find all of this links in our descriptions. Thank you, Kim, James, RebingeIt Podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting us.
Always, man.
Great to be here.
Anytime we want to talk Star Trek, you're our first email.
Absolutely.
It's our absolute pleasure.
Because nobody calls anybody anymore. But yeah, that is
call me. What are you talking about?
No. Text messages. That's it.
Yeah.
You can talk on my text device?
No. I don't think mine does that.
That's it. That's the podcast. We're going to get out of here. Until next week.
Just one more thing.
I played the outro and everything.
Sorry, just one last thing.
Jesus Christ.
You can send all Star Wars hate mail to KidPhoenix.
No. No, you cannot. No. In the description where the links go, I will put in parentheses, your Star Wars comments can go to this social media page, this email address. So, Teebs, if you get like 7,000 to 8,000 emails, that's why. Until next week, we're going to get out of here. Teebs and KidPhoenix, Series 4 rolls on. We're out.